Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in Salesforce FX Hour. My name is Amit Chaudhary. I'm your host. So today we are going to talk about Slack for Salesforce, and we have a special guest with us, Megan. So let me hand over her for her introduction and for the session. Hand over to you, Megan.
Awesome, thank you. So I am going to I tried to put everything into this, but I could not get everything properly formatted. So I'm going to switch to my other tab where I have my properly formatted deck. I'm so sorry. I tried. So I'm going to do my intro off of this one. And for those of you that haven't seen me present before, it's a lot of live demos. So we're not going to be in the deck very much. All right. So to get started, so I'm actually the delivery manager and technical architect over at Accenture. I'm a Salesforce MVP. So in addition to being an MVP, I'm also the Seattle Women in Tech User Group leader. I am the Seattle Slack User Group leader. I run the Road to CTA Salesforce Saturday group. I'm a community cloud specialist. I've been in the ecosystem now for 15 years. I'm a technical architect. I have over 500 Trailhead badges. And I run the Slack workspace, Ohana Slack, which I started back in 2017. And we're at over 7,000 members now. I really started to fall in love with Slack when I first started using it at work. And, you know, the fact that we can now use it with Salesforce just makes my day, which is all the different options that we have. And the fact that they finally joined the family with us and the Salesforce ecosystem is just phenomenal. It's just opened us up to so many more options. To jump straight in, you know, what can you do with Slack? And what are some of those benefits that you have? Well, you know, it really depends on how far you want to take it. You know, you can do app installs. With a click of a button, you're able to install, for example, Slack for Salesforce, which lets you have an immediate integration between your two systems. What's great is you can also connect things like DocuSign and other apps that you're using within your current org. You can connect to your Slack. I love connecting my Google Calendar so people can see when I'm on a meeting right off the bat. Instead of having to ping me and say, hey, can we chat? It's like, dude, the meeting icon is up. I'm in a meeting. That's what it means. It's going to do it automatically for me. You can connect your Lucid Chart, your Google Drive, same thing with Microsoft products. Just makes it so much easier to share documents, to collaborate, and all pre-made, easy to use. You can create workflows. Workflows are where you can build out, very similar to in Salesforce, a declarative way for you to create automation with Slack and its another application, with Slack and, you know, a custom integration. And you're able to then say, hey, when this happens, notify me, or make it so that when people click on the little lightning bolt that's in the right below where they're typing, that they're able to go in and say, hey, I want to be able to request a new channel. And these are the fields they're going to have to fill out. You can build a whole app out. You know, it sounds intimidating and it sounds scary, but actually building apps and building bots are pretty much the same thing. One just has a persona. And so when you build your apps out, you know, so for me, I was terrified at first when I built my first Slack app. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I just knew that there were only 10 apps available on the free version, and people had already taken up most of the apps in the workspace that I had, and I needed some stuff to help me with my administration, and I couldn't install any. So I needed to build one for sort of that one space that I had to do every single thing I needed it to do. And it ended up being one of the easiest ways for me to start getting into development to a deeper level, to improve my development skills. And I realized that I can use pretty much any language that I wanted to. Really great opportunity and really great way to get involved. So when just taking a look at the different applications that are out there, you'll notice here that pretty much a number of these apps, there's ours, our little cloud. A lot of these apps are apps we are using every single day within our org or to run our projects. Anything from Asana to Jira for when it's running our project board, Okta to do multi-factor login, and SSO. We've got Workday, which is where so many companies are tracking our information. GitHub, where we're probably storing our repos. And then Zoom, we're on Zoom right now. All of these are available to log in and set up with Slack and also have them integrate. So what can you do with your apps? And you're able to connect your calendar, connect your phone. So I have to say the meeting apps are probably one of the best, and to bring those back over into Salesforce too. So Salesforce has done a great job with bringing up meetings, bringing up the ability to track, and especially now that they're getting more involved in that meeting space. However, Zoom is where we're actually having the meetings. Zoom is where we're kickstarting things. So having those actual, that Slack, doing a slash command and saying /Zoom join now or Zoom start, whatever we need to do, having that right available to us right there, so easy. And then have it track back in Salesforce. Also tracking our files. What are all those different files that we're using and how? Now, one of the big questions is, you just saw a ton of different ways that you can work with stuff, and some of the cool ways to work with stuff, and some of the totally awesome ways to work with stuff. They're all exciting, I promise you that. And one of the big things is getting started. And this is where I kind of want to start talking about some of those best practices. Just because they're there and they're easy doesn't mean it is a free-for-all. Just like in Salesforce, just because we can do it doesn't mean we can do it in prod, or doesn't mean we can do it just because. Using apps, using integrations with Slack, all of those require planning, just like they do in Salesforce. We need to have a reason. We need to be able to bring value. We need to think about the user experience. And we need to figure out, what is it that we're enabling? Do we have something else that already does this? And, is that something that we're able to bring together and, actually get some benefit for the business out of? And then they already have some ways the governance is built into a Slack. So for example, if somebody requests an application, they're able to have a request done, which is great. However, it's usually just not enough. You're going to need more people involved the more you grow. So kind of a workflow to try to keep things simple. Can this be done with standard features? Just like with Salesforce, can this be done out of the box? If it can be done out of the box, use the standard feature. Can this be done with an app from the App Store? If this can be done with an app from the App Store, install the app. Can this be done with a workflow if it can't be? If this can be done with just a basic workflow, go to that workflow builder. Does it need a webhook? Then go to the workflow builder and use a webhook if you have to. And then if you need more than that, then you're looking at using a custom app or a custom bot. But make sure you know whether or not your end users are going to be using this. Just like Salesforce, we don't want to jump straight to development. We don't want to jump straight to custom. We don't want to overblow it the first time. We want to keep it simple. The KISS, keep it simple, silly, and start simple, grow as you have your users that need more information. And then planning. One of the best practices you can have with a Slack application is to plan it out first. Now, I admit, on the Slack website and in some of the Slack development areas, they go on and on and on about the storyboarding, the planning, the methodology, but they don't really give you very much detail about how to do it. One of the great things is, by being people that use Salesforce, we have Trailhead, we have the Partner Learning Camp, and all of these items give us documents, they give us help, they give us templates to help us plan out our stuff. Help us find out, what is it that we're truly trying to get to, and what is it that we actually need. So first up, get it down on paper about what is it that you truly want to build. And of course, I'm missing you. Is this going to actually have a long-term benefit? Are people going to benefit from what you're building? Or is this just something you want to build because it's cool? Because let's admit it, we all have stuff we want to build because it's cool, but that's what dev orgs are for. And so we can build our stuff that's going to benefit the business at work, but we've got dev orgs for building stuff that's actually pretty cool. And I'm going to sneeze 1 second, guys. And then when we carry on, is this actually something that needs to happen, on a regular basis? Is this something that we're doing with emails right now that we should get out of? I am sure we all are getting email update after email update from either some application or some workflow to keep sending us email updates for no reason at all besides the fact that they send email updates. I bet most of us have some sort of rule inside of our email that says send straight to trash, or at least some of them. You know, well, why would we? So, if there is a way that we could get those all out of our inbox and not even have to have them taking up space, it would be just awesome. And so, that would be the purpose of moving some of those around and switching them over into a Slack application. What about all of those to dos? So, for me, one thing I like doing is inside Slack, I make myself a to do list. And we'll walk through how to do that when we jump over into the demo side. But it's more of a, a pretty straightforward path to show that you are able to just do a slash, put in your reminder, and then, you can easily make an app. Use one of the existing apps out there to have them all list up on a wall that shows you what is it that's available and what is it that's due when, or have your Slack bot remind you of what is out there and what you need to get done. It's a nice way to just have yourself, easily reminded of what's going on and not have to watch your calendar as many times, or even just have your calendar integrated. But I personally like the Slack spot reminding me because I tell it to snooze and it keeps coming back. And then find out who struggles with collaboration tools. Not every place is great with collaboration tools. We can all admit that. There are just some companies that just haven't quite figured them out yet and haven't figured out the benefit of collaboration tools. Why are they so great? What are we getting out of it as end users? Specifically, as somebody that's been remote for a decade, collaboration tools are huge to me. And companies taking advantage of collaboration tools are huge to me. And what is it that can be done to help simplify that and to get more people on there? And then also, when thinking about what is it that you want to build, what are those applications that you use every single day? Are you using Google Sheets? Are you using Lucid? What about Jira? What about Salesforce? Thinking about those applications and having them regularly integrated with your Slack makes it so it's easier for you to have that all at your fingertips in one place instead of hopping application to application. All right. Then, once you figure out what it is that you want to build, now it's time to outline your use cases. So just like Salesforce, you have what it is that you want to build, you have your idea to go forward. Now start going through and say, what is it that you want to do? How do you get from point A to point B? Build that process flow. Dig into what are those big wins for the business? Not just what are you getting out of it technology-wise, but what is the actual business getting out of it? Because that's where your actual supporters come from, where your executive sponsors are. Getting an onboarding app is super. Like, we all love to get onboarding done easily. But when you get that onboarding done, what is the win? Like, yeah, it's going to take less time for your admin. That's great, but don't admins have all the time in the world? I thought you guys were all like superheroes with infinity hours in the day. What do you mean you need something that's just more efficient? We're able to help those new users. You can make sure they have time for figuring out where all their new systems are. You can have regular reminders available to them. You can make sure their paperwork is filled out on time. You can ensure that they can't get certain things done until that paperwork happens. Oh, well, that starts to make sense to a business. And when you start taking it to the level of these are our personas, these are our people, these are the ones that are going to win and why, that's when the business is going to say, okay, these are the people I know. That makes so much more sense than, you're going to make the code better, or you're going to make this just a more efficient app. Because trust me, we all probably think more in Salesforce terms and in, application terms than we do in what is the business win sense. Then, when we're sitting there and we're figuring this out, also start to think about, what do we want to have happen? What is going to happen with each one of these different parts of our application? What does the button do? What is it going to look like? Do we need a login page? Are users going to need to bookmark something? Or is our app going to pop up regularly and ask, hey, it's been a while since we've chatted. Don't forget that you can always call on me for this and this and this. How often should it do that if it does it so it's not extremely annoying? Things like that. And then also if we're going to have the end users able to invoke it, they're going to need some sort of command that they can type in with their slashes. And with that, just making it so it's something relevant. What are your end users going to be thinking about so that they know that that's something to type in rather than making it something that only you or the other builders are going to know. So along with that, know your audience, just like when we build anything else with Salesforce. Is this going to go to an internal group or are we building this for the marketplace? Very similar to Salesforce, how Salesforce has the app exchange, Slack has the marketplace. And again, when working on the marketplace, keep in mind, how is your wording? Who are you talking about? Same thing when you are building internally. There is no reason for you to build differently internally than for the marketplace, because we should always be ensuring that we are keeping our applications available to all genders, all ability levels, all races, all ages. Now, one thing to keep in mind is maybe we give all of our employees super fast internet connections, but they may not have that if they're purchasing your app on the marketplace. If you're going to have an app that slows people down, then it's definitely not a great app for Slack. You want them to have a great experience, and the last thing we want to do is slow them down. And then over here, consider your interactions. Pick those points of entry. You have to put yourself in user shoes. What will be the easiest for initiating a workflow? Is it going to be by a shortcut? Is it going to be with a custom application and building that out using an app or the bot using the block kit? Are there going to have to be multiple ways to get in? Now, imagine, you're the user. What type of communication is going to make the most sense to you? All of these different parts of planning, just like when you're getting down to the nitty gritty in your Salesforce projects, just as important in your Slack applications. And then storyboarding. So I would say that this actually comes in probably one of the best ways to get your Slack app built. And at first I was kind of hesitant. I was like, great, one more thing to have to build out. And really it made it so that my time for build was cut in half of building some of these out. Now, all you've got to do is take just like a Google slide and draw out what is happening on each one of these little dialogues. How are they getting to it? How is it triggering? And just have, create a little template, which there's an example of in this deck, by the way. Otherwise it is linked to. And then, you're able to just have that going on and then just drop it in there, slide it communication way after communication way, be it a pop-up, be it a home screen, any different of those options. And that's going to make sure that you've got it set up for how are you getting to this application. Now, once you have those set up, yes, you can deviate, but don't just randomly deviate while you're building. Go back and build out a new storyboard. Maybe you came up with a new option. It's just not worth it to deviate, randomly on the fly. And make sure you're planning out your actual information. So what is the value? Who's going to be delivering it? Who is in charge of that governance? Who's going to be enabling it? And then what's going on with the platform? Simple templates, simple basics, and just like your Salesforce projects, you've got to make sure you're lining things up. And then for this one here, the easy thing to do is just grab these little squares and drag them on. This is one of those out-of-the-box Slack templates that they give for you. And it's more of a where does stuff fall? And how do you keep it in order? And then they showed that you can always add more. But I have found such great use out of these Slack templates that they have on the Partner Learning Camp, as well as on the Trailhead modules. So I would definitely go in. If you haven't taken the Trailhead modules, check them out. And if you're a partner, check out the Partner Learning Camp for those. Workflow Builder, very simple. I'm going to actually jump ahead those you hear to the roles and responsibilities matrices. One thing I wanted to quick talk about was security. So in Salesforce, just like in Slack, your org admins are your admins. You do not want to make everybody an admin of everything. Just like you don't want to make everyone a workspace admin. An org admin is in charge of all of your orgs. A workspace admin is in charge of just one Slack workspace. So you can have in enterprise, 6 different workspaces all tied together. The org admin is in charge of all 6. The workspace admin is in charge of the ones that they're assigned to. But then think about your end users. You do not want to be going in and just giving away all your permissions, just like we don't want to give sysadmin to all of our end users. My first org that I worked as an admin was 154 users and 154 sysadmins. It was terrifying. And that day that I started, I was the most hated person in the world. And I stayed that way for quite some time because I took admin away. So by starting things with the right permissions, you don't have to turn yourself or someone else into that guy. So start your permissions out right. And Slack even gives you recommendations and templates to use about how am I setting this up and why. Uh, Again, it's just a best practice to plan all of this in advance when you're working on your app. Are they going to have the right permissions? How are these going to be set up? And to what extent? Continuing through, who's going to create channels? Who is going to make private channels? The size of your workspace definitely depends on the amount of permissions you give out. Smaller workspaces can be a little bit more liberal. I've seen small workspaces where they give out the ability for people to make applications. I find that a little scary, but if you've got an entire group of developers and they're not pushing them into your org, that's one different thing. And then if they are actually, making applications and then they can install them directly. And then also making sure that you have an approval process. We talked about this a bit before, but they make it extremely easy for you to just go in and fill out the information for an approval process just directly with a couple of clicks without you having to build anything out custom like you would have to in Salesforce. And then before we jump into a couple demos, last up, governance with apps. Again, get that business use case, have them justify their needs when they're filling that out. It's actually an option about whether or not you want them to justify the need for the application. I find it extremely helpful to have them do so. Meet and discuss with the request for new applications. Don't do that just off the bat and don't try to do that in a silo. Make sure you're meeting with the right people. Do a security review of your applications. Not every app has been reviewed that's out there, just like not every app on the App Exchange has gone through a security review. You see a bunch of them that you can only find through Google. They tell you at the top that they haven't gone through. And then if you didn't find a fit, that's when you want to look at starting to build. And then there are tons of Slack events and webinars out there. And then there's also your Slack certifications for your admin cert and your developer cert. And one thing I want to talk about with those certifications is the fact that Salesforce Slack has training modules to help you prepare for these. And while you're going through them, you can actually earn credits to help you get certifications for free, which is a great advantage. Now, I know we talked pretty heavily on the Slack side and some of their best practices, but I want to jump into some of those demos. Any questions before I do? All right, I'm going to jump over. I'm going to pause my screen. All right. The Zoom bar is always where you want to click. Right, I'm just logging into my org, and as soon as I'm in, I will make sure that I got my share going again. Okay. So one of the big parts about Slack for Salesforce and Salesforce and Slack working together is that you end up having, this is what I have it in.
Hey, Megan, if you don't mind, can you increase the font size, please?
Oh, yeah, no problem. And actually, I'm going to switch to my other org where I actually have this all configured already. So 1 second here. Got two with very similar logins. Of course, we all have a bajillion dev orgs. Okay. And so every time you want to use Slack with Salesforce, we do have to still install the Slack with Salesforce application. There are two places we install that. One, there's the installation package for in Salesforce, and two, there's the installation package for within Slack. So it's not fully 100% baked into Salesforce yet, but we're getting there. And then I'm going to go over to Slack here. And you'll notice that when I pull up the Slack application on this side, it's going to show us what we have to configure. Oh. There's the lightning dots. Get in there. All right. So the very first thing that you end up doing is you end up setting up, and I'm going to go backwards to the first one. So you have this one here where you set up your system connection. This is where you actually connect to your Slack. So this is where you log into which workspace are you connecting to. The next one that you connect to is just where you're enabling your objects. Here I've connected custom object one. I'm actually going to go here. We're going to connect our, let's actually do let's pick a fun object. Go with, well, actually, we'll just go with whatever's on top because I can't seem to scroll. We'll go with candidate. So whenever we have a new candidate in our org and their email or their education, or their mobile changes, mobile is a field we have available to us, or your experience in this giant text field. And then we're going to click add. Now, you'll notice on the side here, when we add our custom objects, we have the option to have them connected directly over to Slack. So I'm going to go here, just do automatic activation. This is automatically going to connect that object to Slack. So we get all of our automatic Slack commands with that object. And you know what? I probably forgot to, I probably disconnected it from this one. Authorize. Finish. Let's go back over here. Try to activate this one first. Activate. Try with manual. We'll go manual then. Next. 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 So when we go into, I would say that the vast majority of time, this ends up setting up all by itself just fine. And what ends up happening when you go through the manual is you end up having to set up all these actions on your own, which is kind of a pain. What's really nice though is our standard objects, account, contact, opportunity, lead, the ones we're doing the demo off of, they're already pre-configured. So we're just going to hit next here just so you kind of see what all those steps are that they make you do manually if you have to do it yourself. And we're going to hit finish. And then we'll go into our custom alerts. And then here, so what you're actually able to do is come up with your own individual criteria for things that you want to have go over into Slack and alert. Now, this can be as specific as an individual record, or this can be whenever any object does this. So if we were to say accounts and then account type, this would be the object level since it's for all accounts. And this is where we say which field. If we go down to the record level, we are literally picking an individual record. So just something to keep in mind. You don't want to configure these for records for every single record. If you could keep them at the object level, try to. I'm just going to hit the X on that one and jump back out. And then here you have your org configuration. This is going to decide where all your buttons go and what gets added where. It's going to automatically select all these for you. I'm just going to click the add actions to layouts. You'll notice those were all of our standard objects there that already were connected automatically. The more you select, the longer it takes. Just a heads up, but it'll run through, it'll go through these. You can click the next button and move to the side. We already have these added, so I'm going to do that. And then here is where you can add the messages component viewer. So with the messages viewer component, you're actually able to see the back and forth messages. And you have the option to edit Lightning Classic. Again, all you have to do is click add components pages for anything that's activated. Oh, and I'm not sure if it's on every one of our pages, but it's not part of our demo, so we can just hit finish. And then the last thing that we have is for the automation configuration. So actually, we do have to wait on this one. So this has the no quick action in that. We'll just do next. And we'll wait for this one to finish so we can get into the automation screen. That's what I get for undoing everything before the demo. And then one thing I also recommend installing is over on the unofficial SF website. They have a number of Slack for Salesforce actions that go inside flows. Anything from channel creation to counting members to pulling all a list of members, things to help with administration of Slack from within Salesforce. It's a pretty cool package. You'll have to install your base flows and then your base screen components as well. But it's a great package to use, and it's going to give you a lot more actions in Slack that you're going to be able to avoid having to build out yourself custom. I'll make sure to add that link into the deck so that it's available as well. I love when stuff takes forever while you're waiting on the phone. Yeah, I'm going to be quiet for just 1 minute and see if it does it. Otherwise, we're going to just jump over to the lead. All right. So we were trying to add our details to quite a number of layouts. And I'm in my dev org. We're going to just jump over to our lead and take a look at that where I've got some of this set up. So if we go over and we go to our lead page layout. Yeah, let's just drop it to 2. Slack thing is always where I want to click. There we go. I'll open leads. All right. So on here, you'll notice that at the top of our lead page, we have our standard fields that come along, and then we'll just go and add them since we probably knocked them off while we were playing with our stuff there. Go to our edit object, and we'll just add those Slack buttons on ourselves manually. So you just have to go into your page layouts and just update the lightning actions. Like I said, the app already creates them for you, so it makes it nice and easy. And there we go. And then you'll notice when I just click here, this is where we have our, we can send it over to Slack. We can manage the alerts that exist for that record. We can send it over into Slack, into the channel that is connected. And then we can also set up Slack alerts. So I'm going to hit save. And then let's jump back over onto that lead so we can take a look at some of those and then look at how we can do some of the flows with custom channels and such afterwards. I know we're running low on time. I'm so sorry, everybody. There's just so much to go over. So let me refresh my page. All right. So here, this is where we now have our Slack buttons available down at the very bottom. So you'll notice first that we have our Slack alerts here at the very bottom. And this is where, because lead is one of those standard objects, just like if we would have had to accept all those objects when I was trying to do it on the live demo for all of the candidate, this is what gives you the option. We're connecting over into our Ohana Slack test org. And we can pick our channel that we want to go over into. And let's say that this is part of our leads. And then here we can always say, whenever this happens, tell me when the lead is converted. Tell me every time the lead status is changed. Tell me every time the lead owner is changed. Don't tell me every time an email is sent because we have connected marketing automation. That would be way too many emails. And don't tell me every time a call is logged too, because hopefully our BDRs are calling these people every day. We don't want to know that. And then every time an event happened, same thing. If they're having a meeting, we don't want to know that because that could be way too many notifications. One thing you really want to think about is how many notifications is this really going to send to Salesforce? People get a lot of Slack notifications. Slack notifications can become overwhelming if they are not something that is relevant to the user. So try to make sure that when you are setting up your notifications, you're keeping in mind, again, like we talked about before, who is that end user and what are they trying to track? So we'll hit save. And then when we go over and update our lead status here from not contacted over to our nurturing contacted, and hit save. And I'm going to end up switching my screen here for you all, so you can kind of see that coming through the Slack side. So Slack opens up. What it ends up doing is it just sends a message to that channel called leads to say what has happened. Now, the great part about getting into some of those custom actions, such as the ones on the unofficial SF page, is the fact that they're actually able to customize those and to make sure that you have the information that you need for specific situations. So if you wanted to have it be not just for any of those actions, but you also want to have it, whenever somebody has a custom field that was edited, you can set that up. You can also have it so that when, people have a button now that they can work with, all without having to do any custom development. And so I'm going to switch over here. Oh, those huddle things. All right, I'm going to go to my lead field and then I'm going to switch my screen. Just popped up there. All right. And where's the second one? Still not coming up on my shares. All right. So let me try one more time. Yeah, I opened it too early. There it is. So you'll see very similar. I have this connected to another org as well, but you'll notice that December 6th, I had it come over when the lead got created. This one came over when I had done an update to as well. Assuming that there was an issue with that back and forth that we had, where we had all those red errors where it didn't come across yet. But yeah, just using the straight up out of the box functionality that comes with the application, and you'll notice that it's visible there. I'm going to keep moving forward just so we can see a little bit more. So we've got about 5 minutes left before we hit questions. So jumping back over into Salesforce and kind of try to wrap things up there. This one. Quick wanted to show is the unofficial SFs. We didn't get to jumping into those items, and just grab that for you all so you can see what it does. That was the Slack integration with Slack flow actions. I have been using this one quite a bit lately. You can invite users to a Slack channel, up to 1,000 user IDs at a time. That is so many users at once. So one thing you can also do is, let's say you have a group that is part in Salesforce and part out of Salesforce. I've actually had this happen on a project before, where not every single member is going to be a Salesforce user of that team, and they want to use cases. Well, Salesforce, or part of the team, wants them to use cases to track what are all their incoming requests. You can use the Create Slack Channel button. It comes with the unofficial SF package to create a Slack channel off of your case. That Slack channel then lets that team, or all of the people that are not in Salesforce, able to collaborate. And that Slack messages viewer we talked about shows all of their messages, whether or not they're in Salesforce or not. And so they have that access to collaborate on a case or a request, even though they're not in the system. Then their messages feedback over it. And then when they close the case, that channel is going to auto archive for that Create Slack channel. Pretty simple, basic flows using out of the box or Salesforce created functionality. The ones for the get all Slack channels, the get Slack channel members, the kick user from Slack channel, and then the invite users to Slack channel are also great for administration. A lot of these that are on the unofficial SF, they just make managing Slack easier. But archive and create Slack channel are great for, just setting up groups that are split. Not everywhere is wall-to-wall Salesforce, so it just makes it a lot easier, because chances are, if they're not wall-to-wall Salesforce and they have Slack, everybody is in Slack. And then, all of those are just set up in a basic flow. The actions are ready to go. All you have to do is drop them on and either show a screen or just have it behind a button and you're all set, making it an extremely easy way to get full integrations with Slack without having to build an app anymore. I mean, just last year we were having to build out apps, and now we don't have to for some of this functionality, which makes it so nice. I know I'm down to the last 5 minutes. I wanted to make sure I had time for questions. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. So actually, so with the Slack to Salesforce, so hi, Amy. I would say with the out of the box app, not so much, but you absolutely can do that custom. We actually did that something very similar right around Dreamforce time, where people were able to respond and update fields using the using Slack inside Salesforce, and they would just fill in fields inside of a Slack using the block kit. It would come over, and then they filled in their fields and it pushed back over into Salesforce. Yeah, so you can, but just not using the standard integration app. You'd have to do something a little bit custom. But you could do that with flows. What's great is once you hit the flow area, you're also able to start using that block kit on the Slack side without having to go too crazy and get into too much development. And by the way, that block kit builder, even though I keep talking about it like it's dev work, it is. I want to quick show that to you just so you can see it. Is the block kit builder. It's actually a pretty declarative tool. I'm going to use this template just to get started. You'll notice here the items on the side that you can click on, and then you just customize over here to change what the text is. So for example, this one say cats. Slash and cats. There you go. And so just change them pretty easily without having to do any sort of custom code or anything. Yeah. And as for scheduling a report as a file or a link and sending it over to people in Slack, that is a great question. I haven't done that, but I bet you there is. Challenge accepted, dude. I'm on it. I'll find out. Yeah. Good question, Brandon. I would assume that you can, just because you can send everything else over, but I'll find out for you, and then I can put a post up. Yeah. Other questions?
Anyone have any question? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question directly.
Great question for how to set up SSO with Slack. You know, there is actually an application for you to install to do SSO with Salesforce with Slack. It would help just connect the two, or you can go custom. It's really just about what are you trying to do and what are you trying to connect SSO with. There's also an application for Okta that makes it a lot easier to connect with Okta. So there are a couple of different ways, but I would stick with the app route if at all possible.
Okay, look like no more question. So let me stop the recording.